Mercedes F1 drop a bombshell on Hamilton, Wolff responds. So we're going to be getting through that in today's video, but before we get into it, make sure you like this video, and don't forget, if you want more Mercedes F1 content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hitting that red button down below. But let's get straight into today's video. So Mercedes 2022 F1 slump has encouraged me to stay longer, says Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton has revealed that the disappointing performance of the Mercedes W13 in the 2022 Formula One season has been a deciding factor in why he's continuing to race next season. Mercedes claimed their 8th consecutive Constructors' Championship at the end of 2021, but have yet to see themselves on the top step of the podium in 2022. Coupled with his gut-wrenching end to the 2021 season, Hamilton hinted that if things had turned out differently, that he might not have been so motivated to stay another year. As you all know, it does seem that Lewis Hamilton wants to break the tie between him and Schumacher and finally win that last Drivers' Championship. And obviously he wasn't able to get it last season, so that's why I think he is going to keep going until he is able to do that. It doesn't look like this season is going to be that year, but it does set him up that Hamilton is going to keep going until he finally gets that victory. He also had this to say: "I think if we had just won last year and then we would won this year, life would be in a different place and you'd be in a different course. I love that it's gone through an even harder phase and we've got to pull through that thick slog and get to the point where we are a little bit lighter and we're floating a little bit more. So yeah, I would say that it's encouraged for me to stay longer." Maybe it's a good thing in the same sense that, at least we get to see Lewis Hamilton continue to compete at the highest level. I really do think if he did win that 8th, he definitely probably would have left already and he probably would have retired and called it quits. He continued to say, "Plus, I'm feeling fit. I'm finding ways of feeling better physically. The mental challenge is consistent, and that will always be the case because that's how it is for us athletes, because we're on the edge. I like to think I still deserve a place to be here, and there's still lots of work to do." So I think it is really important to understand that someone of Lewis Hamilton's caliber can continue to race even into the older years, especially due to the fact that he's definitely one of the greatest racers to ever race. So definitely, him getting in that older age, a lot of people say, some racers, they do diminish. A perfect example, unfortunately, is such as, Daniel Ricciardo. I think Daniel Ricciardo is still a great racer, but obviously people are saying that his age is getting to him. But when it comes to Lewis Hamilton, they haven't said anything yet. I think Lewis Hamilton is still competing at the highest level, but the only thing letting him down so far is definitely the W13. Now, the W13 has showed glimpses of improvements throughout the season, with George Russell's pole position in Budapest being a highlight. The team have also secured 13 podiums throughout the year, but have lacked the pace to compete with the main frontrunners of Red Bull and Ferrari. Now, I think he can actually, or them as George Russell and also Lewis Hamilton as teammates, can compete with Ferrari. I think Red Bull this season is definitely on another level, but I think they can slip away with one win. When asked if it hurts not to be fighting for the win, and he has been the most of his career, Hamilton replied, "I wouldn't say it hurts. We all know what it could be. We all would have loved to be in that battle fighting. I wish that all the cars were a lot closer and we were all having a much better battle closer to the front. Hoping when we come back in February next year, the car touches the ground and it does what we hope it does." Now, as you all know, the Singapore Grand Prix is the next Grand Prix to take place. I think it's going to be very important. The reason why is because this Singapore Grand Prix is really highly, no straights. So when there's no straights, I think, when you come to Red Bull, also Ferrari as well, they're not able to take advantage of the other teams when it comes to them being so fast off those straights. And I think that's going to play a huge factor, especially moving forward. I think when it comes to, Mercedes and what they have done, this is actually the race they can do in order for Lewis Hamilton to win and actually continue that streak alive. As you all know, Lewis Hamilton does have a streak for at least winning one race every single season, and I think he hasn't won this season just as of yet, but Singapore Grand Prix is definitely the place to do it. So it is going to be interesting to see how that all plays out, but I think with everything that is going on, I think that George Russell can definitely get podium as well, and Lewis Hamilton can go away with the win if he can drive better, as there's not many straights in this Singapore course. So I think that'll play huge and pay a huge advantage. Mercedes admits it was overly optimistic for 2022 F1 car. The trackside engineer director for Mercedes, Andrew Chauvelin, has admitted that the German team were too optimistic with their expectation of the W13 ahead of the new regulations for 2022. The design approach that Mercedes turned up for preseason testing in Bahrain was one of the most radical ideas on the grid. That was of course to do with the side pods or lack thereof on the W13. Since then, they have to contend with one of the worst cases of porpoising on the grid, as they failed to meet the same expectation they had themselves to for the previous 8 championship winning seasons. It has been a very interesting journey, Chauvelin said in a recent interview. I think we are very overly optimistic in where we thought we could run the car. The car that we launched had a lot of downforce close to the ground, and there was a lot of people with issues being able to actually run the car on track there. We're not where we would like to be, but the direction of travel looks okay. So we're working very hard to try to improve that. I think there is a lot of improvement that the W13 needs, but I feel like this late in the season there really is no point, and they really should start working on the concept for next year, which they actually have done, or next season. And George Russell has been given, some hints on what he thinks about it, what he wants from it, all that nature. Now, the improving performance of the W13 has been a significant topic of the 2022 season as they slowly get close to the front runners of Red Bull and Ferrari. It has become quite apparent that the car is much more suited to the high downforce tracks such as Budapest and Zandvoort, as opposed to the low downforce high-speed circuits like Spa and Monza. Spa was quite interesting, Chauvelin added. It was quite painful at the time, but we've often said that our worst weekends are the ones that reward us with the most learning. The learning that we took from that does give us an indication of where we need to develop the car in future. At Zandvoort, we were expecting to be more competitive, so it was reassuring that it played out. The underlying problem is sort of rooted in how we've developed the car and how it's working an aerodynamic package. Now, with all of this being said, I think Mercedes can definitely get at least one win before the end of this season. I know they are looking into just focusing on next season, which I think is kind of more important. This season's definitely done. Red Bull is going to win. Unfortunately, as a Mercedes fan, that is hard to say, but I think with everything that is going on, it's better to look into the future and not worry about what's happening right now. So I think the best thing to do is try to get Lewis Hamilton to at least win one race so he can keep his streak alive, and focus on next year and try to come out better. Now, when it comes to the porpoising, obviously that was a huge problem, and I think that was something that really affected their whole season. It's hard if you get off to a slow start, especially in F1. There aren't a lot of races, compared to, I guess, other sports such as basketball, football, anything like that, where you're playing 60, 70, even 80 games a season. It's very, very smaller than that in F1, so every race really does count. And I think Mercedes just got off to a really rocky start with the whole porpoising issue, and that really caused a lot of problems early on, and it was just too hard for them to actually catch up to teams like Red Bull, but I do think Ferrari they can still catch up to. Now, Russell offers theory on Mercedes qualifying pace. Whoa. George Russell has offered a theory on why Mercedes has struggled in qualifying this season compared to its race pace. Mercedes heads into the final 6 Grand Prix of the season, still searching for its first win due to the vagaries of its W13 at the hands of Russell and Lewis Hamilton. Aside from the obvious difficulties over the first half of the campaign with porpoising and bouncing, the car has struggled for pace during qualifying. In turn, Russell and Hamilton have not yet had the grid slots to fight for wins. On Sundays, however, the car has proven stronger, allowing both drivers to make up positions, with Russell scoring 7 podium finishes and Hamilton 6. Ordinarily, the weak spots of a car are often highlighted during a race. In contrast, the deficiencies of the W13 are more marked in qualifying. Analyzing why this is the case, Russell said it's something we are still trying to comprehend as well. There's no doubt we are very good at tire temperature management, and that probably plays against us. In qualifying, I think those midfield cars which potentially induce more temperature into tires naturally can afford to go slower on the out laps, damage the tire less, and then we have more performance for a single lap. Whereas you see with us, pretty consistently, our out laps have to be so fast in qualifying to get the temperature that we are damaging the surface of the tire. That's probably why we're on the back foot in qualifying, but it's just a theory. We don't have a lot to merit to back up that argument just yet. So I think this is honestly huge, and with everything that is going on, it's fantastic to see what Russell has had to say. I think he's very smart for a driver of his age. Russell is still very young, and obviously he's learned a lot, not only from just Lewis Hamilton, but also just being a driver for Mercedes so far. But I think when it comes to what is coming up for George Russell, he has a future ahead. Now, Lewis Hamilton does not find it painful that Max Verstappen is now power in F1. The Briton hopes to be competitive again soon with Mercedes, but is not worried about the things out of his control. Hamilton was so close to an 8th world title in 2021, but a safety car restart on the final lap of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix put an end to that. Verstappen snatched the title from in front of him, and the same Dutchman will also dominate Formula 1 with Red Bull Bull Racing in 2022. Hamilton, however, is not too worried about that. Whilst we do worry about things we can't control, you have to try to learn to try to. Hamilton said wisely in conversation with Racer, "I do watch other sports and I wish that I had a pure ability that I have that makes all the difference. However, this is not the case in F1. Hamilton also sees it is much more about the performance of the car and the whole team you are in. Putting pain in F1 into perspective on all this, it is annoying for Hamilton and his team at the moment that no wins have yet to been recorded in 2022. But the 7-time world champion also puts it in perspective and saying, so it's definitely tough, but I don't like the word tough because I've been in Africa and I've seen kids that have nothing, so nothing is ever really that tough. I wouldn't say it hurts. We all know what it could be. We would love to be in battle fighting, and I wish that all the cars were a lot closer and we're all having a much better, closer battle to the front." And I think this was kind of like a shot at Red Bull and saying that, you know, with everything that is going on, I feel like the cars should be somewhat more and more equal. Now, Hamilton had a tough time in 2022 at all because besides the fact that his car is not good enough to compete for victory on a weekly basis, he also has a bigger challenge within the team. Although Hamilton narrowly won the qualifying duel over George Russell on Sunday, scored 35 points more in 2022. So there's a lot to really gasper in or everything that is going on. And I think, you know, with Mercedes, with what they have done so far, I think they can pull away a sneaky win in the Singapore Grand Prix, especially against Red Bull. I don't think Red Bull is going to do so well. I think, you know, they'll definitely finish still in like the top 10. I think Verstappen can definitely finish in the top 5, but I really don't see, you know, Verstappen actually going away with the win. I don't know. That's just my feeling, and I really do hope Lewis Hamilton gets that win. So, guys, I just did want to say, let me know down in the comments what you think is going to happen at the Singapore Grand Prix. Thank you so much for watching, and yeah, I'll see you soon. Peace.